think we're good. I need to catch my breath a little bit. I just got back from probably the longest bike ride that I've done since I borrowed the bike off Glyn. And it's really true that exercise puts you in a good mood, because I was coming up the hill, a pretty steep hill, which I didn't ride. I didn't ride up. No chance. I walked the last part of the journey because that hill's pretty steep. But as I was walking up the hill, I thought, now's the perfect time to go home, sit down and just record my thoughts. So this is going to be episode 2 of the Whole Life Crisis podcast with me, your host, Ollie Rosser, of YouTube and Instagram fame. But yeah, I just had a great ride. Basically, this morning I was chatting to my friend Matt, who I hope might want to come on this podcast at some point, because he's very interesting and we get on like a house on fire, with plenty of stories to tell. But I was chatting to him this morning and he was asking if I knew anywhere that had like I think he was asking for like scrubland, but basically he's got a buggy that he's just kitted out to look like an apocalypse buggy, and he's made tons of like fake weapons. I hope they're fake. I wouldn't want him to get arrested. But he's made a bunch of like apocalyptic weapons, and he's got this buggy, and he wanted to know if I knew of anywhere we could go and shred it, and or take some photos for him. So my mission this morning was to jump on the bike, head down to Barry Docks, where I know there's like a little patch of land that people use for dirt biking, and I think quad biking as well. I saw some like double tracks down there. So I rode down today, took the cameras with me, found the place, and it looks pretty decent. It doesn't look completely ideal, because what they've done is they've lined big massive boulders along the road, so you can't actually get any vehicles on this land unless you were on like a 2-wheel bike. But Matt said that we'd probably be able to lift the buggy over these stones. So I found the place. It looked pretty decent. We're going to go hopefully try it out soon when I've got all my photography equipment ready to go. But basically on the way back then, I just took a leisurely ride around Barry Docks down to Barry Island and the Nap. And while I was doing it, I decided to FaceTime my family so that they could sort of join me on the ride. And it worked out really well. I'm a bit concerned about how much data I might have used. But basically I wanted to do that because ever since this lockdown began, and a little bit before that, my mum hasn't been going out of the house because she's just had, in January she had surgery for breast cancer, which went really well, but now she's 3 out of 4 sessions done in her chemotherapy sessions, or chemotherapy treatment. So obviously during this whole pandemic we've kept her in the house. She hasn't been allowed to go out. We're not risking anything. We just wanted to stay in, stay safe. Obviously she's back and forth to the hospital when she needs to. But it turned out to be a really good idea to FaceTime while I was riding around, because she could, it's a beautiful day outside. It's sunny. The weather's amazing. I'm still sweating. Probably more profusely than I'd like to admit. But yeah, she got to see all the places that she hasn't been for, 2 or 3 months now. And it was a really good idea, and I'm really pleased with it. So I realized that that's kind of like what in real life streamers do. So it kind of interested me. Maybe I'll take that up. But I think the most interesting thing that people found about that is that they get into altercations and it's all drama based. I've got no interest in that sort of stuff. I would just want to go out and it's probably not going to happen. I think it was only interesting to my family because they know who I am and they knew what they were looking at. But it's just an interesting idea that people actually go out during the day and live stream their whole day, and people find that interesting. Anyway, it's something I might consider. I don't know. But yeah, I had a great ride, did something nice for my family, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. The other thing that I was thinking as I was coming up that last part, as I was walking the bike up the hill, I was listening to Tim Pool talk about Joe Rogan's new Spotify deal and how he's essentially probably the most prominent person in, what would you call it, popular media at the moment. Tons of people listen to the Joe Rogan podcast. He's just done $100 million deal to go exclusively with Spotify, which I didn't like when I first heard it, because Excuse me. I'm a bit of an Apple fanboy, and I like having everything neat and in as fewer apps and packages as I can possibly get. So I'm a big fan of just having the podcasts app where I listen to all my podcasts. But obviously now, come September and then the beginning of next year, I think Joe Rogan's Spotify exclusive, which I will probably go over to Spotify to listen to him, because I've got a hell of a lot out of his podcast over the years. But Tim Pool was just discussing how, I understand Joe Rogan's, he had a bit of fame at the beginning. He was the Fear Factor host, and his podcast has now become one of the most, well, probably the most successful in the world. But Tim Pool was on about, you don't get success instantly, and you don't get success if you quit, and you've got to keep going and going and going, and probably doing the things that you love to do, even if you're not seeing any or seeing much progress at the time. So that's what I'm hoping to do with this podcast. I thoroughly enjoy sitting down here in front of a microphone. I'm talking to nobody in particular, and I'd be very, very surprised if anybody actually listened to this. But just having all the equipment set up is something I really enjoy. So I'm going to try and make this a bit more regular now. Just sit down and record my thoughts, and maybe talk about how I feel about certain subjects and whatnot. And like I said earlier with Matt O'Brien, get some guests on and talk about old stories and how we know each other, where we came from, that sort of thing. So I think that's probably it. This isn't a very long one, which is good, because I need to go and take a shower, and I've got the dog's food cooking in the oven. That's a lie. I've got 50 minutes until his food's ready. I'm just trying to make an excuse to sound like I've got to go somewhere so I don't ramble. But yeah, if you listen to this, firstly, I'm shocked. And I appreciate that you bothered taking the time. You can find me on Instagram at Ollie Rosser Photo, spelled OLLIEROSSER Photo. You can find me on WhatsApp. No, you can't. You could if you had my phone number, but I'm not putting that here. You can find me on YouTube. YouTube.com/Ollie Rosser. Yeah, look me up. I've got a website, ollierosserphoto.com. Basically, my whole premise is I like to produce content. I'm not particularly great at it, but I have fun while I'm doing it. So whether it's my photography, my accidental financial advice videos on YouTube, or this podcast, I just enjoy doing it. So yeah, hopefully you'll get something out of listening to it. Thanks very much. I hope everyone's staying safe in the lockdown. I understand these are unprecedented times, and I'm not sure how I feel about everything at the moment. It's a bit... I'm loving having the time off from work. The weather's been great, which is fantastic. People seem a lot more polite, and the town has sort of quietened down a bit with regards to traffic on the roads and big gatherings, which is good to see, because that is the government guidance. But I do also feel like there are certain aspects of it that I find a little bit oppressive. For example, when I first saw the council van that was driving around the streets with the tannoy system saying, please stay home, protect the NHS, save lives. I get the sentiment. I just didn't particularly enjoy the method that they were doing it. It felt a bit oppressive. And the other day I was riding around Barry Island and noticed that the police were blocking off the roads. And I get it. They have put roadblocks up which aren't manned, and people aren't acknowledging those. They're just carrying on as normal. So I understand that the police presence is necessary to stop people doing what they shouldn't be doing. But again, there is an element of it feels a bit oppressive. And the police were lovely. I had a chat with them, asked them what they would do, asked them how they were doing, not what, not what they were doing, as if I've got any say in the matter. But yeah, they were really polite. They chatted to me. It was basically just a case of people aren't respecting the roadblocks, so they had to step in. But yeah, it'll be nice to get back to some sense of normality. Although I must say I am enjoying this sort of slowed down version of life. We've been off work for 8 weeks. I'm a bit nervous about when we'll be able to go back to work, because it doesn't seem like it's going to be anytime soon. But I've enjoyed the break. And I'm going to try and continue to do so until anything changes. So stay safe. Thanks for listening. Tune back in again if you like. we'll talk about nothing much again. But yeah, take care.